The hand slammed down on the table with enough force to make the metal tray jump. Mashed potatoes hit the linoleum floor with a wet slap. Gravy splattered across polished boots. The mess hall at Naval Special Warfare Training Center went dead silent. Lieutenant Commander Kira Vaughn didn't flinch. She simply looked up at Commander Donovan Cross with dark eyes that gave away absolutely nothing. And that silence, that absolute unshakable silence, was the first crack in Cross's armor. He just didn't know it yet. But let's back up, because this story doesn't start in a San Diego mess hall on a Tuesday evening. It starts 34 years earlier, in the burning sands of Kuwait, when a young Master Chief named Garrett Sullivan learned that the best operators aren't always the ones who shout the loudest. Kuwait, February 27, 1991. 03:42 hours. The compound was supposed to be empty. Intelligence had sworn it. 3 reconnaissance passes, satellite imagery, HUMINT, from 2 separate sources. All of it pointing to the same conclusion. Abandoned Iraqi position, ripe for demolition. Garrett Sullivan was 24 years old and believed in intelligence reports the way other men believed in God. He'd learned better. Hard lessons have a way of sticking. The explosion came from the north wall, then the south. Coordinated, professional. The kind of ambush that speaks to training, not luck. Sullivan's 4-man team scattered like roaches when the lights come on. 2 made it to cover, 1 didn't make it at all. Sullivan took shrapnel in his left shoulder and went down behind a half-collapsed wall that wouldn't stop a determined breeze, let alone automatic weapons fire. The radio in his ear crackled. A woman's voice, calm, clinical. Viper 1, this is Overwatch. I have 3 hostiles advancing your position from northeast. Another 2 flanking west. You're about to be boxed in. Commander Margot Vaughn was 26 years old and had a voice like winter's steel wrapped in velvet. She was supposed to be 3 clicks away, providing electronic warfare support and communications relay. She was very good at her job, but what made her exceptional was knowing exactly when to stop doing her job and start doing what needed to be done instead. Overwatch Viper 1, I'm hit, can't move, teams scattered. Sullivan's voice stayed level. Training did that. Kept you professional even when your blood was soaking into Kuwaiti sand. 30 seconds of silence, long enough for Sullivan to count his remaining rounds. 11 in the magazine, 1 in the chamber, 12 bullets between him and whatever came next. Then Margot Vaughn's voice again. Different now. Not the detached controller, but something else. Something that sounded like decision. Viper 1, stay put, I'm coming to you. Negative, Overwatch. You're 3 clicks out. They'll have me in 2 minutes. Then I suggest you make yourself small for 90 seconds, Master Chief. The line went dead. What happened next became the stuff of quiet legend. The kind of story that gets told in classified briefing rooms, never in bars. Margot Vaughn covered 3 kilometers of hostile territory in just under 7 minutes. Alone, at night, through an active combat zone. She killed 2 Iraqi soldiers with a suppressed M4, relocated twice to avoid detection, and reached Sullivan's position with 40 seconds to spare before the flanking element would have had clean shots. She didn't say a word when she arrived, just grabbed Sullivan by his tactical vest and hauled him backward into deeper cover. Then she set up a defensive position and held it for 12 minutes until the QRF arrived. Sullivan lost a lot of blood that night, but he gained something more valuable. The bone-deep understanding that competence doesn't announce itself. It just is. Later, after the medics had patched him up and the after-action reports had been filed, Sullivan found Margot checking her equipment outside the medical tent. I owe you my life, Vaughn. She looked up. Dark eyes that could have belonged to her daughter. Would belong to her daughter, though neither of them knew it yet. Just doing my job, Master Chief. That wasn't your job. Your job was staying safe 3 clicks out. Margot Vaughn smiled. Small. Controlled. The kind of smile that said she knew exactly what she'd risked and would do it again without hesitation. My job is making sure good operators come home alive. Everything else is just paperwork. Sullivan never forgot that. Over the next 34 years, through 2 more wars and countless operations, he never forgot what Margot Vaughn taught him in the Kuwaiti desert. That courage looks different than most people think. Quieter, more deliberate, less interested in recognition and more focused on the mission. When Margot died 3 years ago in a classified operation in North Korea, Sullivan had been stateside, training the next generation of warriors. The news came through encrypted channels. Facility breach gone wrong. Pressure system failure. 2 operators lost. Commander Margot Vaughn stayed behind to extract wounded teammates. She got them out. She didn't make it back. At the memorial service, they'd given Sullivan an envelope. Margot's handwriting on the front. For Garrett, open if I don't come back. Inside a single line, watch over Kira. She's going to need a witness. Naval Special Warfare Training Center, San Diego. Present day, 1843 hours. The mess hall buzzed with the controlled energy of operators winding down after a brutal training day. Kira Vaughn carried her tray with steady hands, the kind of grip that most people wouldn't notice, but that came from carrying far heavier things through far worse places than a military dining facility. She was 29 years old, 5'4", brown hair pulled back in a regulation bun, khaki uniform perfectly pressed, utterly unremarkable. No warfare pins on her chest, no ribbons telling stories, just a simple rank insignia that read Lieutenant Commander. And on her left wrist, barely visible beneath her sleeve, a jade bracelet that had once belonged to someone who understood the weight of silence. Kira found a table near the back wall. Ghost territory. The spot nobody claimed because it was reserved for people who were new, alone, or didn't understand the unwritten politics of military dining. She sat down. She started eating. Fork to mouth, chew, swallow. Mechanical, efficient. Across the room, Commander Donovan Cross watched her with the focused attention of a predator who'd spotted something that didn't belong in his territory. Cross was 42 years old and looked like he'd been carved from granite by someone with a grudge against soft edges. 6'2", 230 pounds of muscle earned through punishment. His Navy cross sat on his chest like it was designed to blind anyone who looked too long. Former SEAL Team 6, 3 combat deployments to Iraq. Instructor cadre for the most elite training pipeline in naval special warfare. He was holding court at the center table, mid-story about a compound raid in Fallujah, when Kira walked in. His eyes tracked her across the room, watched her sit, watched her eat without looking up, without acknowledging the social architecture of the space she'd entered. Well, Cross said, pushing back from his table, looks like headquarters sent us a care package. Laughter erupted. Immediate, practiced. 8 instructors, his hand-picked team, knew their cue. Chief Ryder Wolf, thick-necked and eager, leaned in. Think she got lost on her way to the admin building, Commander? More laughter. The pack was forming. Kira counted the footsteps without looking up. 8 men spreading out as they approached, creating a loose semicircle that blocked her from the rest of the room. She tracked them through peripheral vision, analyzed their formation. Loose, overconfident, no tactical discipline. 8 men who'd never had to approach someone who might actually be dangerous. Cross planted his knuckles on her table. The wood creaked under his weight. You know where you are? His voice boomed. Performance voice, pitch for the audience. This is SEAL territory. We don't get many desk jockeys wandering through here. Kira continued eating. Fork, chew, swallow. She didn't look up. This was the first violation. Cross's dominance display required acknowledgement. Fear would have been ideal. Anger would have been acceptable. But this complete absence of reaction hit him like a slap. Hey! Louder now. His thick finger tapped the table next to her plate. I'm talking to you, Lieutenant Commander. Kira finished chewing, set her fork down with a soft click. Then slowly, deliberately, she lifted her eyes. Cross felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time, a flicker of uncertainty. He crushed it immediately under anger. Her eyes were dark, not quite black, dark the way deep water is dark when you can't see the bottom. They held no fear, no anger, no nervousness. They simply observed, clinical, detached. She was looking at him the way a surgeon looks at an X-ray, already knowing the diagnosis. "You know who you're looking at?" Cross straightened, his rhythm broken. "Former Team 6. 3 deployments. We just rotated back from an operation that would make your headquarters friends cry into their coffee." Behind him, Wolf snorted right on cue. "So I'll ask you one more time." Cross leaned closer. "What exactly are you doing in my mess hall?" Kira's eyes moved, not her head, just her eyes. They swept across the 8 men behind him, one by one, face by face. She noted ranks, postures, the casual arrogance in how they stood just slightly too close. Then her eyes returned to Cross. She gave a single, almost imperceptible shake of her head. Not a negation, a dismissal. It was this more than anything that lit the fuse. Cross's smirk vanished. "Lost your tongue, sweetheart?" "Maybe she only knows admin speak, Commander." Another instructor chimed in. "Probably can't tell the difference between a real operator and a desk jockey." The laughter grew, encouraged now. Kira checked her watch, a small gesture, clinical, like she was timing something, as if this confrontation was an appointment running long. The gesture infuriated Cross in a way words never could. And then, with a swift, contemptuous motion, he swept his hand across her table. The tray exploded, food scattered, a glass of water shattered, mashed potatoes hit the linoleum. A plastic fork skittered under the adjacent table. The entire mess hall went dead silent. This was the moment, the inflection point where a response was expected. Tears, shouting, anger, something that would validate Cross's aggression and confirm the natural order he believed in. Kira looked at the mess on the floor. Then she looked at her watch again. Then she looked back at Cross. Her expression hadn't changed. It was like looking into a camera lens. In the far corner, Master Chief Garrett Sullivan gripped his coffee cup hard enough to turn his knuckles white. Every instinct screamed at him to stand up, to walk over there, to pull rank and shut this down. But he didn't move, because Sullivan knew Kira Vaughn, not the version these men saw, the real Kira Vaughn. Slowly, Kira stood. She bent down, picked up the fallen tray, collected the scattered food, gathered the broken glass piece by piece, careful not to cut herself. She didn't look at Cross, didn't acknowledge the 8 men surrounding her, simply performed the task with mechanical efficiency. Then she walked past them. Her shoulder passed within inches of Cross's arm, but she didn't turn her head, just walked with that same quiet, measured purpose to the cleaning station. She deposited the tray, turned toward the exit. The silence she left behind was heavier than anything that had preceded it. Cross stood there, victory hollow in his mouth. He'd won, established dominance, proved his point. But it felt empty, like punching smoke. "Guess the Navy knows when to retreat," Wolf tried. A few weak laughs. Cross didn't laugh. He stared at the exit, and something in his expression looked uncomfortably like doubt. Sullivan slowly stood, dumped his tray, left through the side exit. There was nothing to do now but wait. Kira reached her quarters in Building 7, 3rd floor, end of the hall. The room was standard BOQ, desk, bunk, locker. On the desk sat a hardened case that didn't match anything else in the room. She sat down, closed the door. For exactly 7 seconds, she was still. The adrenaline she'd held in check began to seep away. Not anger, never anger. Anger was noise in the signal. She opened the case. Inside, nested in custom-cut foam, a matte black laptop bearing no logos, a satellite communications module, an encrypted hard drive, the tools of her actual trade. She powered on the laptop. A few keystrokes brought up an encrypted partition. She began to type. Log entry, NSWC San Diego, Mess Hall, 1843 hours local. Verbal engagement initiated by Commander Donovan Cross, identified as Senior Instructor Cadre. Subject accompanied by 8 additional personnel from instructor team. 1848 hours. Subject escalated to physical action. Displaced personal meal tray. Intent, public humiliation. Objective assessed as successful from subject's perspective. 1849 hours. Disengaged from situation. No verbal response provided. All 8 individuals visually identified and longed for future reference. She saved the file. The encryption wrapped her words in mathematical protection that would take years to crack. Then she reached for a smaller case, opened it. Inside was a patch she never wore on her uniform. Black as midnight, embroidered in silver, a trident piercing through a stylized wave. Beneath it, in subtle gray thread, silent service, per aspera ad astra, through hardship to the stars. It was the unofficial emblem of a unit that didn't officially exist. The Naval Special Warfare Development Group, Underwater Operations Division. The people who went where even SEALs couldn't go. Kira looked at it for a long moment. Her fingers traced the outline of the trident. She'd earned this patch at 26 years old in a flooded facility in North Korea. On the worst night of her life, the night her mother died. She closed the case, then opened the smaller zippered pocket and pulled out the jade bracelet. Worn, weathered. The jade was smooth from years of wear. It had been on her mother's wrist when she died. Commander Margot Vaughn, DevGru, 24 years of service, 53 classified missions. She'd been the quiet one too, the one who didn't need to announce herself, who let her work speak. She died in an underwater training facility in North Korea 3 years ago. A mission that went wrong in every way a mission could go wrong. Bad intelligence, compromised insertion, ambush waiting inside. Margot had gotten 2 team members out before the second explosion. The third explosion got her. Kira had been there. Not in the facility, she was on surface support, monitoring communications and providing electronic warfare coverage. She was 26 years old. It was her 9th mission. She heard everything through her headset, every shout, every explosion, and then her mother's voice, calm even at the end. Kira, baby, stay on mission, complete the objective. That's an order. Those were her last words. Not goodbye, not I love you. An order. Because she knew Kira would follow an order even when grief was tearing her apart. Kira had completed the mission alone after the rest of the team was incapacitated. She'd infiltrated the facility by herself, neutralized the automated defense systems, secured the intelligence package, and carried 1 wounded operator 2 kilometers to the extraction point through hostile territory. She was 26 years old. They'd given her the patch afterward, and a classified commendation she'd never wear. Now she held her mother's bracelet in both hands. The jade was warm. For one moment, just one, the mask cracked. A single tear traced down her cheek. "I'll make it right, Mom," she whispered. "I promise." Then the mask returned. She tied the bracelet around her left wrist, closed the patch case, powered down the laptop. Her mission at NSWC San Diego was clear. She was here to assess tactical readiness, to probe defenses, find gaps, write the report that would either validate their systems or expose fatal flaws. The human element was proving to be the most significant vulnerability of all. Master Chief Garrett Sullivan found her at 05:15 the next morning in the base's combat training facility. The building was supposed to be locked until 0600, but Kira was already inside. Sullivan stood in the doorway and watched. Kira was moving through close quarters combat drills. Not standard Navy CQB, this was something else. Fluid, violent, A choreography that flowed from entry to threat neutralization with speed that blurred individual movements. She cleared a simulated room in 1.1 seconds. Sullivan counted. Entry, assessment, 2 simulated targets neutralized, 1 simulated hostage secured, extraction angle established. Most SEAL teams cleared rooms in 3 to 4 seconds. Elite teams in 2. She just done it in 1.1, alone. Heard there was friction in the mess hall last night, Sullivan said. Kira didn't stop moving. Transition to the next room, 1.3 seconds. Clean. Situation is being monitored, Master Chief. Sullivan nodded. Monitored meant documented. It meant Kira was in control of whatever response was coming. Cross is a pit bull, Sullivan said. All ego, no perspective. But a pit bull with a Navy cross is still a problem. Kira finished her drill, stood still, controlled her breathing, then turned. Her eyes were clear, steady, the same eyes that had unnerved Cross 12 hours ago. All data is useful, Master Chief. The corner of Sullivan's mouth twitched. Your mother would have handled it the same way. Something shifted in Kira's expression. Brief, controlled. A flicker of something human behind the operational mask. My mother would have finished her meal first, Kira said. Sullivan almost laughed. Yeah, she would have. He gave Kira a single nod. The one that said, I trust you, stay sharp. But before he turned to leave, Sullivan reached into his jacket and pulled out a small notebook. Old, worn, the kind that had seen decades of field use. Your mother asked me to watch over you, Sullivan said. Before North Korea, she knew something was wrong with that mission. Couldn't prove it, but she knew. Kira's hand moved to her jade bracelet. Unconscious, protective. She asked you to watch over me? To be a witness, Sullivan corrected. She said when you prove yourself, someone needs to see it. Someone who understands what it means. He held out the notebook. Kuwait, February 1991. Your mother saved my life in the desert, pulled me out of an ambush that should have killed me. She was 26 years old, about your age now. Kira took the notebook, opened it. Sullivan's handwriting. Field notes, tactical observations. And there, dated February 27, 1991. Commander M. Vaughn demonstrated exceptional tactical judgment and courage under fire. Recommendation for commendation approved. She never mentioned it, Kira said quietly. She wouldn't. That's who she was. Quiet competence. No fanfare. Just the mission. Sullivan paused. There's something else you need to know. That facility in North Korea, the one where Margot died, I've been looking into it. The design, the automated systems, the pressure protocols. Kira's eyes sharpened. And I've seen similar patterns before. Kuwait, 1991. We had a series of incidents, facility failures, communication blackouts. Never random, never accidental. We suspected sabotage, but never caught who was responsible. Kira's mind was already racing ahead, connecting dots, building patterns. You think the same person. I think your mother was investigating something before North Korea, something that went back 30 years. She was close to finding answers. And then she died in a facility that failed in exactly the way those Kuwait facilities failed. Sullivan met her eyes. I promised Margot I'd finish what she started. I'm too old to do it alone, but you're not. Kira closed the notebook, held it against her chest. What do you need from me, Master Chief? Keep doing what you're doing. Assess this facility. Find the vulnerabilities. Write the report. But if you find what I think you're going to find, you'll need help. Someone who remembers the old patterns. Someone who knows how the Cold War operators thought. You're offering to help me? I'm offering to be your witness, just like Margot asked. Kira nodded once. Sharp. Professional. Sullivan turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. Commander Cross is planning a major training exercise. Advanced underwater breach scenario. Scheduled for Friday morning, 0600 hours. 8-man team. He's been pushing for aggressive parameters, tight margins, maximum realism. Something cold settled in Kira's stomach. What kind of facility? Submerged training module, automated pressure systems, emergency ascent protocols. Kira's fingers tightened on the notebook. I need to see the exercise specifications. They're classified. Cross has them locked down tight. He doesn't want headquarters interference. Master Chief, I need to see them, now. Sullivan studied her face, saw something there that made his own expression harden. You know something. I know that my mother died in a facility with automated pressure systems and emergency ascent protocols. I know that 3 years ago, someone used her after-action report to build a training scenario. And I know that if this exercise uses similar parameters, Cross's team is walking into the same trap that killed my mother. Sullivan pulled out his phone, made a call, brief, coded, hung up. You'll have access to the specs in 20 minutes. But Kira, if you're right about this, we need to go through proper channels. Get authorization. Shut down the exercise before it starts. And if Cross blocks us, if he refuses to delay based on a hunch, Sullivan's jaw tightened. Then we'll need to get creative. Your mother taught me that sometimes the mission requires breaking protocol to preserve lives. He left. Kira stood alone in the training facility. 20 minutes until she'd see the exercise specifications. 20 minutes to prepare for what she already knew she was going to find. She looked down at Sullivan's notebook, at her mother's name written in his careful handwriting 34 years ago. I see you, Mom, she whispered. I see what you were chasing, and I'm going to finish it. 19 minutes later, Kira's encrypted laptop chimed. Incoming secure file transfer. She opened it. Exercise specification. Advanced underwater breach training. Facility, Tank 3, submerged training complex. Depth, 120 feet. Duration, 6 hours. Automated systems, pressure regulation, emergency ascent protocols, communication relay. Kira's hands went cold. She pulled up another file, the one she'd never wanted to open again. The classified after-action report from North Korea. The one she'd written in a hospital bed with 2 cracked ribs and her mother's blood still under her fingernails. She laid the specifications side by side. Facility layout, identical. Pressure system design, identical. Emergency protocols, identical. Automated fail-safe architecture, identical. Someone had taken the North Korea facility, the one that killed Margot Vaughn, and recreated it here, in San Diego, for training. Kira's mind raced through the implications. This could be coincidence, standardized designs, common protocols. The Navy used similar systems across multiple facilities. But Margot had suspected sabotage. Sullivan had seen patterns in Kuwait, 30 years of incidents. Kira pulled up the maintenance logs for Tank 3, scrolled back 6 months, looking for anomalies. There, April 15th, minor pressure fluctuation, logged as atmospheric variance within acceptable parameters. May 3rd, another fluctuation, same tank, slightly longer duration. June 12th, same pattern. July 8th, August 2nd, September 19th. The fluctuations were getting more frequent, and each one lasted slightly longer than the last. Kira ran the numbers, built a predictive model based on the pattern. The screen populated with red. Projected failure time, 4.2 hours into exercise. Margin of error, plus or minus 30 minutes. When that seal failed, Tank 3 would lose pressure integrity. The automated emergency systems would activate. The ascent protocols would engage. But Cross had set the ascent timing too aggressive. The safety margins were too thin. In North Korea, that exact combination had created an impossible situation. Operators forced to ascend too quickly from too deep. Decompression sickness. Nitrogen narcosis. Bodies that couldn't handle the pressure differential. Her mother had died trying to save two team members from exactly that scenario. Kira stared at the red numbers on her screen. Friday morning, 600 hours. 8 men were going to descend into that facility. 4 hours and 12 minutes later, they were going to face a crisis they weren't prepared for. And Donovan Cross, for all his Navy Cross and combat experience, had no idea what was coming. Kira reached for her phone, then stopped. Who would she call? Cross had her locked out of any official oversight role. He'd made it clear she wasn't welcome. Going through proper channels would take days. The exercise launched in 68 hours. Her mother's voice echoed in her head, clear as the day she'd said it. Stay on mission. Complete the objective. Kira looked at the jade bracelet on her wrist, felt the weight of it. What would you do, Mom? She already knew the answer. Margot Vaughn would complete the mission. Protocol be damned. Regulations be damned. Career be damned. Lives came first. Always. Kira opened a new command window. Her fingers moved across the keyboard. She was going to need access to more than just monitoring systems. She needed control access. The kind of access that would leave digital fingerprints. The kind that could send her to a military prison if anyone traced it back. But if it saved 8 lives, prison was a price she could live with. The authorization protocols materialized on her screen. She typed in Sullivan's old Gulf War-era access codes, the ones he'd given her that morning, analog protocols from an era before everything was digitized and monitored. The system accepted them. She was in. Now she just had to figure out how to save 8 men who had no idea they needed saving. Men who thought she was nothing, who'd laughed when their commander humiliated her, who dismissed her as irrelevant. She was going to save them anyway, because that's what professionals did. Kira pulled up the facility schematics, started planning. Tank 3's layout, emergency access points, manual override locations, decompression timing calculations. She had 68 hours to prepare for a rescue that nobody knew was coming. 68 hours until Donovan Cross walked into the nightmare he'd created. And 68 hours until Kira Vaughn proved that the woman he'd chosen to underestimate was the only thing standing between him and death. She touched the jade bracelet one more time. I'm ready, Mom. When it happens, I'll be ready. The screen glowed in the darkness of her quarters. Red numbers counting down. T-minus 67 hours, 42 minutes. The mission had begun. Thursday, 1,847 hours. 42 hours until exercise launch. Kira sat in the equipment bay underneath Tactical Communications Vehicle 7. Her diagnostic probe was connected to the encryption suite, but her tablet displayed something far more concerning than signal analysis. The pressure variance in Tank 3 had increased again, 0.38%, still within automated safety parameters, still invisible to anyone who wasn't looking for the pattern. But Kira was looking. She heard them before she saw them. 3 sets of boots on concrete, heavy, confident, the particular rhythm of men who believed the world owed them space. She slid out from under the vehicle and stood up, tablet in hand. Commander Cross rounded the corner with 2 instructors flanking him. His swagger was amplified today. The mess hall victory had inflated him like a parade balloon. Well, well, he drawled. The Navy's got a grease monkey now. Lieutenant Holden Drake, one of Cross's team, laughed on cue. Careful, Commander. She might get oil on that pretty uniform. Kira held the tablet steady, didn't respond, continued reviewing the signal analysis on her screen. Cross stepped closer. His eyes went to the tablet. Complex waveform displays, encryption algorithms, frequency mapping. Lots of squiggly lines there. He leaned in, invading her space with practiced precision. You sure you know what you're looking at? Because I'd hate for you to accidentally break something important while the real operators are getting ready for actual missions. Kira's fingers continued working the screen. Her voice came out flat, professional. This is classified diagnostic equipment, Commander. I need to maintain focus. The use of his rank was a subtle blade, a reminder that protocols existed, that the military had rules even for men with Navy crosses. Cross's eyes narrowed. Then he smiled. And then he reached out and plucked the tablet from her hands. It was a flagrant breach. You did not touch another operator's equipment, period, end of discussion. But Cross wasn't thinking about protocol. He was thinking about dominance, about putting this headquarters desk jockey in her place twice in 2 days. He turned the tablet around, pretending to study it. Yeah, see, this is what I'm talking about. Bunch of nonsense on a fancy screen. You headquarters types love your gadgets, don't you? Kira's hand, the one that had been holding the tablet, remained suspended for a fraction of a second. Then she lowered it slowly. Her eyes locked onto his face with the intensity of a targeting laser. That device contains classified material, Commander. I need you to return it. Classified? Cross snorted. Relax, we're all on the same team here. He tossed the tablet back, casual, dismissive. Kira caught it one-handed, clean, no fumble, no reaction. Her reflexes didn't come from headquarters training, Cross noticed. For half a second, something flickered in his expression, like a man who just touched an electric fence and was still processing the shock. He leaned in closer, close enough that she could smell his coffee breath, close enough to be intimidation. You got a problem with how I run my facility? Kira said nothing, held his gaze with those dark, steady eyes that gave away absolutely nothing. Cross straightened, satisfied with his own performance. Let's go, boys. They walked away, already composing the story they'd tell later. How they'd put the headquarters observer in her place. How she'd back down without a word. Kira stood in the equipment bay, tablet in hand. Then she calmly disconnected her probe, packed her equipment, and returned to her workspace. She wasn't angry. She was taking notes. Friday, 02:37 hours. 28 hours until exercise launch. The email arrived in Lieutenant Jackson's inbox at 02:14 hours. He read it twice before his stomach dropped hard enough to make him nauseous. At 02:37, he knocked on Kira's door. Looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. Lieutenant Commander Vaughn, ma'am. I have a message from Commander Cross. Kira opened the door. She was fully dressed despite the hour. Jackson suspected she hadn't slept. Go ahead, Lieutenant. Jackson's voice got quieter with every sentence, like he was hoping if he spoke softly enough, the words wouldn't be true. Commander Cross has filed a formal complaint. It states that you were, I'm quoting here, uncooperative and displayed inappropriate conduct when he attempted to verify your equipment authorization. Jackson swallowed. He's requesting that you be reassigned from any support role related to the advanced tactical exercise scheduled for tomorrow morning. Command has provisionally approved pending review. You're to remain in general observation capacity only. There it was, the institutional weapon deployed with surgical precision. Cross had manufactured a conflict, created a paper trail, and leveraged the system to remove her from any position where she could interfere with his exercise. It was tactically competent, morally reprehensible, but competent. Understood, Lieutenant, Kira said, perfectly neutral. Thank you for the notification. Jackson lingered, looking like he wanted to apologize, like he wanted to say this was wrong and everyone knew it. But Kira didn't look at him again. Alone, she pulled up the classified files for tomorrow's exercise. Her fingers moved through encrypted documents with practiced efficiency. Advanced Maritime Counterterrorism Scenario, Submerged Training Module, Automated Defense Systems, Pressure Protocols, Emergency Ascent Procedures. Standard stuff for SEAL training, except nothing about this was standard. Kira read the technical specifications, the defensive systems, the automated pressure locks, the emergency protocols. And then she stopped breathing. Her fingers froze over the keyboard. Her heart rate, which maintained 52 beats per minute through combat scenarios, jumped to 88. She knew this facility. Not from a briefing, not from a report. She knew it because she'd been there. The defensive layout, the pressure systems, the automated locks. Every single element was modeled on a real facility in North Korea, the facility where her mother had died 3 years ago. Someone had taken the after-action report, her after-action report, written in a hospital bed with 2 cracked ribs and her mother's blood still under her fingernails, and turned it into a training exercise. They'd used her worst night as someone else's practice scenario. Kira stared at the screen. The blue light cast shadows across her face that made her look older, harder. Her left hand found the jade bracelet. She pressed her thumb against it, felt her pulse beating beneath the smooth stone. Stay on mission. Complete the objective. Her mother's voice, clear as the day she'd said it. Kira released the bracelet. Her breathing steadied. Her heart rate dropped back to 52. She opened a new file. Not a report this time, a prediction. She detailed exactly how the exercise would unfold, how Cross's team would approach with standard procedures that were completely inadequate, how the automated defenses would activate, how the pressure systems would fail, how 8 instructors would find themselves trapped in exactly the same scenario that had killed her mother. She documented every vulnerability, every gap, every assumption that would prove fatal. And then she wrote, in precise technical detail, exactly how she would defeat the threat if given the opportunity. She encrypted the file, saved it with a timestamp, closed the laptop. Then she sat in the dark and held the bracelet. They built it from your mission, Mom, she said to the empty room. They took what killed you and turned it into a game. She paused. And they just told me I'm not allowed to help. The irony was almost beautiful. The one person who'd actually survived the real version of this exercise had been officially sidelined by a man who thought she was a logistics clerk. Cross had removed his own lifeline, and he had absolutely no idea. Friday, 05:47 hours, 13 minutes until exercise launch. The pre-dawn air at the submerged training facility was cold, sharp with salt and anticipation. Commander Cross stood with his 8-man team, all of them in dry suits, checking equipment with practiced efficiency. These were some of the best SEAL instructors in the Navy, men who'd trained thousands of operators, run hundreds of exercises. They were supremely confident. Cross keyed his radio. Operations, this is Viper Actual. Team is ready for insertion. In the control room, Lieutenant Commander Phillips sat at the monitoring station. Screens glowed with data, pressure readings, oxygen levels, communication channels. Everything looked nominal. Copy, Viper Actual. You are go for descent. All systems green. What Phillips couldn't see, was the microfracture in Tank 3's pressure seal. The automated systems read it as normal variance within acceptable parameters. The numbers looked fine. 3 buildings away, Kira saw it differently. She sat in her quarters watching unauthorized feeds through 3 different backdoor access points. If anyone looked closely at the data logs, they'd see the intrusion. But by then it wouldn't matter. On her screen, that hairline crack in the pressure seal glowed like a wound. She watched it the way a surgeon watches a patient's vitals before code blue. 06:12 hours. Cross's team descended. The water was dark, cold, unforgiving. They moved through the entry sequence with textbook precision. 8 shadows dropping into an environment that had killed better operators than them. Kira's screen showed their depth. 40 feet, 60, 80, 100. Her coffee had gone cold an hour ago. She hadn't moved from her chair since 0400. Couldn't afford to. When the crisis hit, every second would matter. 06:48 hours. Cross's voice crackled through the comms. Operations, Viper Actual at Phase Line Alpha, beginning facility breach. Copy, Viper Actual. Looking good from here. Kira's screen disagreed. The pressure variance in Tank 3 had increased to 0.12%, barely measurable, completely invisible to standard monitors, but it was growing, like a crack in a windshield. Small, spreading, inevitable. 0723 hours. Operations, Viper Actual at phase line Bravo. Everything nominal. Kira's screen showed the variance at 0.28%. The automated systems finally noticed. An alert popped up in the control room. Phillips frowned at it. Viper Actual, we're showing a minor pressure fluctuation in your sector. Still within parameters, but I'm flagging it for monitoring. Cross's voice came back steady. Copy that. We're not seeing anything unusual down here. Because you wouldn't, Kira thought. Not until it's too late. 0856 hours. The variance hit 0.41%. Phillips sat up straighter. Viper Actual, that fluctuation is trending upward. Recommend you move to Tank 2 and continue the exercise from there. Negative operations. We're in the middle of a critical sequence. Give me 10 more minutes to complete this phase. Kira's jaw tightened. 10 minutes. Cross didn't have 10 minutes. Viper Actual, I really think I said negative operations. We don't abort exercises because of sensor hiccups. That's not how we train warriors. From somewhere in the control room, Sullivan's voice cut in. Kira recognized it immediately. Commander Cross, this is Master Chief Sullivan. I'm looking at these numbers. You need to move now. Cross's voice came back tight with barely controlled irritation. With respect, Master Chief, I've got this under control. Sullivan's voice hardened. Commander, I've seen these patterns before. Kuwait, 1991. This isn't a hiccup. It's a cascade failure in progress. Master Chief, I appreciate your experience, but we're using modern automated systems. Whatever happened in Kuwait, the alarms screamed. Every screen in the control room went red simultaneously. The automated warning system kicked in with a sound like the end of the world. Phillips shot to his feet. Viper Actual, emergency ascent now. Pressure seal failure in Tank 3. Cross's voice came back, tense but controlled. Copy, operations, initiating emergency, static, dead air, the kind of silence that stops hearts. Phillips hammered his console. Viper Actual, respond. Commander Cross, do you copy? Nothing. We've lost comms. All frequencies down. Sullivan was already moving. Get me a backup channel. Radio. Hardline. Anything. Trying, Master Chief. Everything's jammed. Phillips went pale. It's like something's actively blocking our signals. Kira's screen showed exactly what was happening. The pressure seal hadn't just failed, it had ruptured. And the rupture had triggered a cascade failure in the electromagnetic shielding. The facility's own safety systems were creating an interference field that blocked all communications. The same thing that had happened in North Korea, the exact same sequence. Her mother's last words echoed through her head. Kira, baby, stay on mission. Kira was already moving. She grabbed her tactical bag, sprinted for the door. Her phone rang as she ran. Sullivan. Vaughn, we can't reach them. We can't shut down the interference from here. The safety systems are preventing remote access. I know. Kira was running now, full sprint across the base. Someone has to go in manually. I'm assembling a rescue team. ETA 20 minutes. They don't have 20 minutes, Master Chief. Kira's voice was steady despite the sprint. That facility is flooding. The automated emergency protocols are forcing an ascent, but the timing is wrong. They're going to ascend too fast from too deep. She cleared a corner. The facility was 200 yards ahead. Decompression sickness, or worse. I'm going in. Vaughn, you're locked out. Security revoked your access. I know. Kira reached the facility perimeter. The biometric scanner blinked red when she pressed her thumb against it. Access denied. She pulled a small device from her pocket, something she'd built 3 years ago and sworn she'd never use unless absolutely necessary, unless lives hung in the balance. She pressed it against the scanner. The device hummed. Code scrolled across its tiny screen. The scanner blinked green. Access granted. Vaughn, wait for backup. You can't do this alone. Yes, I can, Master Chief. I've done it before. She killed the connection. Dropped the phone. No time for arguments. No time for permission. No time for anything except the mission. The facility entrance was 100 yards ahead. Kira covered it in under a minute. Her real credentials opened every door. Cosmic top secret clearance. Dev grew. The kind of access that made biometric scanners blink green without hesitation. The doors opened like they'd been waiting for her. In the control room, Phillips was shouting into dead radios. Sullivan stood behind him, watching the monitors with the sick certainty of someone who'd seen this movie before. "How long since we lost contact?" Sullivan asked. 4 minutes, 18 seconds. Time to critical decompression threshold? Phillips checked his calculations. Went white. 6 minutes, maybe 7 if they're lucky. Sullivan's voice was steel, wrapped in fury. They're not lucky. They're trapped underwater with a commander who pushed too hard and ignored warnings. Phillips looked at him. What do? We wait. And we pray that the only person who can save them gets there in time. Who? Sullivan's eyes never left the monitor. The woman Cross tried to destroy. 0904 hours. Tank 3 access point. Kira hit the water at 58 degrees Fahrenheit. No dry suit, no time, just her emergency rebreather and the knowledge burned into her muscle memory from the worst night of her life. The water was cold enough to kill in an hour. She'd be done in 15 minutes or dead. Either way, temperature wouldn't matter. She descended fast, too fast by standard protocols. But standard protocols were written by people who'd never had to save 8 lives in 6 minutes. 80 feet. Her ears screamed. She equalized pressure without slowing. 100 feet. The facility entrance loomed below, lights flickering, emergency strobes painting everything red. She grabbed the emergency access hatch, cranked it open, pulled herself inside. The corridor was flooding. Water up to her waist and rising. The pressure differential was forcing water in from the ruptured seal. In 10 minutes, this whole section would be completely flooded. Kira waded forward. Her internal clock was counting. 4 minutes since comms loss. She had maybe 3 minutes to reach them. Maybe less. She heard them before she saw them. Voices. Shouting. Panicked. The sound of operators realizing they were in a situation their training hadn't prepared them for. Tank 3's main chamber. 8 men in dry suits clustered near the emergency ascent shaft. Cross was at the center, trying to maintain control. Trying to be the leader his Navy Cross said he was. We ascend together, controlled by the numbers. Commander, the ascent rate is wrong. That was Drake, the one with a conscience. We're at 120 feet. If we ascend at the protocol speed, we'll get bent. Cross's voice was hard, defensive. The protocol is the protocol, Lieutenant. We follow it. The protocol is going to kill us. And then Kira stepped into the chamber, water pouring off her. No dry suit, no gear except her rebreather. Long brown hair plastered to her face. Jade bracelet gleaming on her wrist under the emergency lights. 8 men turned, stared. Cross's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Shock, confusion, anger. What the hell are you doing here? You're not authorized. Kira's voice cut through the chaos like a blade through silk. The ascent protocol is wrong, Commander. She moved into the light, water up to her chest now, rising. You ascend at that rate from this depth. Nitrogen narcosis hits before you reach 40 feet. 3 of you die. The other 5 wish they had. You don't have the authority. Kira's eyes locked on his, dark, steady, absolutely certain. I have the authority of someone who watched her mother die in this exact scenario. The chamber went silent except for the sound of water flooding in. North Korea, 3 years ago, same facility design, same pressure seal failure, same emergency protocols that killed 2 operators because they ascended too fast. Chief Wolf stepped forward. You expect us to believe you've done underwater rescue ops? Kira didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on Cross. Lieutenant Commander Kira Vaughn, DevGru, Underwater Operations, 42 classified missions. I wrote half the protocols you're trained on. She paused. Let that sink in. Including the modifications that would have prevented this if you'd bothered to read them. Drake's voice cut in, quiet, respectful. Wait, Vaughn, as in Commander Margot Vaughn? Gulf War legend? My mother, Kira's voice didn't waver, killed 3 years ago in North Korea. Same facility design you're standing in right now. Same pressure failure you're experiencing. Same automated protocols that are about to kill all of you if you follow them. The water was rising, chest deep now. In 2 minutes it would be at their necks. Cross stared at her. Ego versus survival. Pride versus reality. The internal battle played out across his face. Drake made the choice for him. I'm listening to her, Commander. Same, another voice. 6 other hands went up, including Wolf's. Cross looked at them, his team, his men, all of them choosing the headquarters desk jockey over him. He looked back at Kira. What do we do? Kira was already moving to the control panel. We disable the automated ascent system. We ascend manually, in stages, with decompression stops. It'll take 40 minutes instead of 6. Her fingers flew across the emergency override panel. This was the same system that had failed in North Korea. She knew every wire, every circuit, every bypass. But you'll all survive. In 90 seconds, she disabled the automated ascent, rerouted power to manual controls, established stable pressure parameters. Okay, she turned to face them. Water at shoulder level now. We go in pairs. Wolf and Martinez first. Ascent rate 15 feet per minute. Stop at 80 feet for 3 minutes. Stop at 40 feet for 5 minutes. Stop at 20 feet for 8 minutes. Then surface. Understood? They nodded. These were SEAL instructors. They knew when someone knew what they were talking about. Move! For the next 38 minutes, Kira orchestrated a rescue that would have made her mother proud. She monitored each pair's ascent through the emergency transponders, adjusted timing based on real-time pressure readings, kept the remaining men calm as the water rose to their necks. In the control room, Sullivan coordinated with the surface team via backup analog communications, the kind that didn't rely on electromagnetic systems, the kind he'd used in Kuwait. Talk to me, Vaughn, Sullivan said through the crackle of the hardline. Kira's voice came back, steady, professional. Pair 3 ascending now, water at chin level. Last pair goes in 4 minutes. Copy that, you're doing good work down there. Just like Mom taught me, Master Chief. Sullivan's throat tightened. Yeah, just like Margot. Cross went up with the last pair. Before he ascended, he looked at Kira. The water was at his chin now. At hers too. I was wrong about you. Yes, you were. I'm sorry, Kira's voice was steady. Tell me that when we're both breathing surface air, Commander. He went up. Kira waited alone in the flooding chamber, counted the seconds, made sure the last pair cleared their final decompression stop. Then, and only then, did she begin her own ascent. Alone in the dark, just like North Korea. Except this time, everyone lived. She broke the surface at 11:47 hours. Hands reached down, pulled her onto the platform. Sullivan was there, wrapped a thermal blanket around her shoulders. You crazy, brilliant woman, Sullivan whispered. Your mother would be so proud. Kira's teeth were chattering, hypothermia setting in. But all 8 men were on the platform, breathing, alive. Cross sat with his head in his hands. His team surrounded him, wet, exhausted, alive because the woman they'd mocked had saved them anyway. Kira closed her eyes, felt the jade bracelet warm against her frozen skin. Mission complete, Mom, she whispered. Mission complete. The medical team descended on them within minutes. Thermal blankets, oxygen, vital signs checks. The platform became organized chaos as corpsmen moved between the survivors, with practiced efficiency. Kira waved them off, pointing at Cross's 8 men. Check them first. Full decompression assessment. I want blood work on all of them. The corpsman looked at her soaked clothes, her blue lips, her shaking hands. Ma'am, you need... I said check them first. Her voice left no room for argument. Master Chief Sullivan appeared at her elbow. Kira, you're hypothermic. Stop being a hero and let them help you. I'm fine. You're turning blue. Sit down before you fall down. Kira sat, not because Sullivan ordered it, because her legs finally gave out. The corpsman wrapped her in another blanket, started an IV. Kira let him work while she watched Cross's team being evaluated one by one. Counting, making sure all 8 were accounted for, all 8 breathing. Chief Wolf was the first to approach her. He stood there for a long moment, dripping, looking like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Finally, he managed it. You saved my life. Kira looked up at him. Her eyes were steady despite the shivering. I did my job. After I laughed when the commander dumped your food on the floor. His voice cracked. After I made jokes about you not belonging here. Why? Because letting you die would have been unprofessional. Wolf flinched like she'd slapped him, then nodded slowly. I deserved that. Yes, you did. Kira's eyes held his. But you're alive to learn from it. Don't waste the lesson. He walked away. 2 minutes later, Lieutenant Drake came over, younger than Wolf, less sure of himself. The one who'd tried to warn Cross about the ascent rate. I had a bad feeling about the exercise, he said quietly. I should have pushed harder. Should have backed Master Chief Sullivan when he told the commander to abort. You did push. Cross didn't listen. That's on him, not you. I could have... Lieutenant, Kira's voice sharpened. Second guessing is a luxury you get after everyone's safe. Right now, I need you to help monitor your teammates. Watch for signs of decompression sickness, disorientation, joint pain, difficulty breathing. Can you do that? Drake straightened, back to being an operator instead of a guilt-ridden junior officer. Yes, ma'am. Then go do your job. He left. Sullivan settled onto the bench beside Kira, said nothing for a full minute, just sat there, a 58-year-old warrior who'd seen too much and understood more. Finally, he spoke. NCIS is on the way, and the base commander, probably half of SOCOM once word gets out. Good. They'll want to know how the exercise parameters were set, who approved the safety margins, why Cross's complaint locked you out of official oversight. Sullivan paused. And they're going to want to know how you access the facility systems without authorization. Kira pulled the thermal blanket tighter. I violated 13 regulations, Master Chief. I counted. Your career could be over. 8 men are alive. That's the only math that matters. Sullivan was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of 34 years watching good operators make hard choices. Your mother taught me that regulations exist to preserve lives. When they start costing lives, you break them. She say that in Kuwait? No, she said it 3 years ago, right before North Korea. Last conversation we had. Kira turned to look at him. Sullivan's weathered face showed something he rarely let anyone see. Grief. The kind that comes from promises you couldn't keep. She knew something was wrong with that mission. Told me if anything happened, I should finish what she started. Watch over you. Make sure you had a witness when you proved yourself. He looked at Kira with eyes that had seen too many good people die for bad reasons. For what it's worth, I'll testify to everything. Whatever investigation comes, I'll make sure they understand what you did here, what it meant. Across the platform, Cross sat alone. His team had moved away, giving him space. Or maybe keeping distance from the commander who'd nearly killed them through arrogance. Kira watched him, saw the way his shoulders shook, recognized the physical manifestation of a man's self-image shattering in real time. He's going to have to face what he did, Sullivan said. Yes. Will you talk to him? Kira considered. Not yet. Let him sit with it. He needs to feel the weight before we discuss it. But 20 minutes later, Cross stood, walked over, moved like a man who'd aged 10 years in the past 2 hours. He sat down on the bench without asking permission. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared at his hands like they belonged to someone else. Finally, he spoke. His voice was hoarse. I need to understand something. Why? After everything I did to you, the mess hall, the complaint, getting you locked out, why save us? Kira took her time answering. Let him sit in the question. Because 8 men don't deserve to die for one man's arrogance. Cross flinched. Kira continued. But it also revealed something important about this command, about the assumptions built into every level of this institution. Sullivan spoke up. The investigation is going to expose systemic issues. Cross isn't the only instructor who's dismissed personnel based on appearance rather than capability. No, Kira agreed. He's just the one who got caught, the one whose assumptions became visible when they nearly turned fatal. Cross looked up, met her eyes for the first time since the platform. What happens now? Now you face consequences, official ones. You and your team will answer for the safety violations, the ignored warnings, the professional misconduct. Kira's voice softened slightly, just slightly. But you also have a choice about what comes after. What choice? You can let this destroy you. Let the shame and guilt consume you until you're nothing but anger and defensiveness. She paused. Or you can learn, actually learn, not just acknowledge that you were wrong, but understand why you were wrong. Dig into what beliefs led you to see me as less than, and then work to change those beliefs. Cross's jaw tightened. I don't know if I can. Then you're in the wrong profession, because this job requires constant adaptation, constant reevaluation of what you think you know. Kira stood. Her legs were steadier now. I survived North Korea, survived watching my mother die in a facility just like this one. You know what she taught me in those final moments? Cross shook his head. That ego is the most dangerous enemy an operator faces. Not bullets, not equipment failure, ego. The belief that you're right, that you know better, that you don't need to listen to people you've decided are beneath you. She looked down at him. Your ego nearly killed you today. The question is whether you'll let that lesson sink in or whether you'll just find new ways to be arrogant. She walked away, left him sitting there with the weight of truth crushing down. Sullivan caught up to her near the medical tent. That was harsh. He needed harsh. Gentle wouldn't penetrate. Still, he's a decorated combat veteran, Navy Cross, 3 deployments. Kira's voice hardened. And I'm a DevGru operator with 42 classified missions who he treated like a secretary. Decorated or not, he has to reckon with what he did, not just to me, to every woman who's ever been dismissed in this command because she didn't fit someone's idea of what an operator looks like. The sound of helicopters cut through the air, medical evac for full decompression screening, and probably brass coming to assess the disaster. Kira was right. Within an hour, the base was flooded with senior officers. Rear Admiral Victoria Hayes arrived from SOCOM headquarters, 56 years old with iron gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She'd climbed a flag rank in a Navy that hadn't always wanted women climbing. She knew exactly what Kira had faced. Captain Thomas Morrison from NCIS. Investigators with recording equipment and grim expressions. They set up in the main conference room, called people in one by one. Started with Cross. He sat across from Admiral Hayes and 2 NCIS agents. The video camera blinked red in the corner. Commander Cross, Hayes began. Her voice was ice wrapped in formality. Walk me through the decision-making process that led to today's incident. Cross did. He laid it out. The exercise parameters, the safety margins he'd set, the warnings he'd ignored, the complaint he'd filed against Kira to remove her from oversight. And when Master Chief Sullivan recommended aborting the exercise, I overruled him. On what basis? Cross was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was hollow. On the basis that I believed I knew better, that my combat experience and rank meant my judgment was superior. Was it? No, ma'am. It nearly got 8 men killed. Hayes leaned back, studied him with the expression of a woman who'd seen this particular failure too many times before. Tell me about Lieutenant Commander Vaughn. Cross's face tightened. You filed a formal complaint alleging professional misconduct. You requested security review of her credentials. You had her locked out of facility access. Hayes pulled up a tablet. According to your complaint, she was, and I'm quoting here, uncooperative and displayed inappropriate conduct when questioned about her equipment authorization. She looked up. What exactly did she do that was uncooperative, Commander? She didn't respond when I challenged her presence in the mess hall. She continued eating, ignored me. So your complaint was based on the fact that she didn't acknowledge your dominance display? Cross flinched at the phrasing, but he couldn't deny it. And when you took her tablet, classified equipment that you had no authorization to touch? I was verifying her access. You were asserting control. There's a difference. Hayes pulled up another document. Cross recognized it immediately. Kira's actual service record. Lieutenant Commander Kira Vaughn, DevGru, underwater operations, 42 classified missions across 7 countries. Designer of current emergency ascent protocols for deepwater operations. Expert in pressure system failures and automated defense systems. Hayes looked up. She's one of 3 people in the entire United States military qualified to conduct the type of rescue she performed today. Cross closed his eyes. She tried to warn you about the pressure seal, Hayes continued. Through Master Chief Sullivan, through proper channels, you ignored her. Yes, ma'am. Then she violated 13 regulations to access the monitoring systems remotely, tracked the pressure failure in real time, prepared for a rescue you didn't know you'd need. Hayes's voice dropped. And when that rescue became necessary, she entered the facility alone, without authorization, risking court-martial and imprisonment to save 8 men who'd spent the week treating her like garbage. Cross opened his eyes. They were wet. Why do you think she did that, Commander? Because she's a better officer than I am, a better person than I am. Hayes set down the tablet. The interview was over. You'll face formal reprimand, Commander. Mandatory professional development training. Letter in your permanent file. Your career will survive this. Barely. She stood. But you need to understand something. The only reason you're not facing court-martial is because Lieutenant Commander Vaughn advocated for restorative rather than purely punitive measures. She told me that destroying your career wouldn't serve the mission of making this institution better. Hayes paused at the door. She saved your life twice today, Commander. Once in that facility, once in this room. I suggest you spend the rest of your career being worthy of both. She left. Cross sat back down, put his head in his hands, and wept. 3 hours later, Kira sat in the same chair, across from the same admiral. Hayes got straight to the point. NCIS wants to pursue charges for the unauthorized access to facility systems. Kira nodded. She'd expected this. I told them no. Kira looked up, surprised. Your actions, while technically illegal, saved 8 lives and exposed critical safety failures in our training protocols. Hayes pulled up yet another document. Furthermore, the investigation has revealed that the exercise parameters were compromised. Someone accessed the safety systems before the exercise and modified them. Kira's blood went cold. Modified them how? Made them more aggressive. Tighter margins. Less redundancy. Hayes leaned forward. This wasn't just Cross's arrogance, Lieutenant Commander. Someone deliberately sabotaged the exercise to create a crisis scenario. Kira's mind raced. Someone who knew the facility design was based on the North Korea operation. Exactly. Hayes's face was granite. We've had 3 similar incidents at SEAL training facilities in the past 8 months. Pressure failures, communication blackouts, automated systems behaving erratically. She paused. I think someone is testing our vulnerabilities, using your mother's death as a blueprint. Kira gripped the jade bracelet. Her hand went cold. I need you in Syria, Lieutenant Commander. Joint Special Operations Facility. They've detected similar anomalies, similar sabotage patterns. When? 72 hours. Classified transport. You'll be briefing the JSOC commander directly. Kira nodded. Mission first. Always. Hayes added quietly, there's something else. We pulled the access logs for who modified the exercise parameters. She turned her screen so Kira could see. The credential set made Kira's heart stop. Vaughn, M, Commander, DEVGRU. Her mother's credentials. Active, being used. That's impossible, Kira whispered. Mom's credentials were deleted from all systems after North Korea. Should have been, Hayes agreed. But someone kept a copy. Someone with administrative access to personnel databases. Hayes's voice hardened. Lieutenant Commander, whoever's doing this, they're not just testing our systems. They're using your mother's identity to do it. Like they're taunting us. Kira couldn't breathe. Hayes stood. 72 hours. Get some rest, you've earned it. After she left, Sullivan appeared in the doorway. He'd been waiting. I heard, he said simply. Kira looked at him. Someone's been using my mother's credentials for 3 years. Since North Korea. Since she died. Sullivan's jaw tightened. I found something in the old Kuwait files. After you mentioned the pattern, he pulled out a folder. Classified. Decades old. In 1991, we suspected a mole. Someone selling our tactical protocols to hostile intelligence services. Margot was investigating it. She found evidence but couldn't identify who. He opened the folder. Inside, a photograph from 1991. Young Sullivan, young Margot, and a third person, a man in his early 30s, civilian contractor, intelligence analyst. Dr. Elias Thornwell, former CIA, Cold War analyst. He was attached to our unit in Kuwait as technical advisor. Sullivan's voice went quiet. Margot found discrepancies in his background, gaps in his service record. She was building a case against him when the Kuwait incidents happened. Then he disappeared, just vanished after the Gulf War ended. Kira stared at the photograph. You think he killed my mother? I think your mother got too close to exposing him, and I think he's been ghost for 30 years, using her credentials, sabotaging our facilities, selling our vulnerabilities to whoever pays. Sullivan met her eyes. I promised Margot I'd finish what she started. I'm too old to hunt him alone, but you're not. Kira stood, took the folder. Syria, 72 hours. I'm coming with you, Master Chief. I owe your mother, I owe you, and I'm the only person alive who knows how Thornwell thinks, how Cold War operators worked. He paused. One last mission, Kira, for Margot. Kira looked at this 58-year-old warrior who'd carried the weight of her mother's death for 3 years, who'd kept his promise, who'd been her witness. One last mission, she agreed, for Mom. 72 hours later, the C-130 descended through Syrian airspace at 0340 2 hours. Kira sat in the cargo bay among equipment pallets in silence. Sullivan sat across from her, checking gear with the practiced efficiency of a man who'd done this 1,000 times. The intelligence briefing had been grim. Joint Special Operations Facility detecting the same sabotage signature. Major exercise scheduled for the next morning. 14 operators, same automated systems, same pressure protocols, same pattern that had killed Margot Vaughn. Lieutenant Colonel James Ramsey met them on the tarmac, 66 years old, retired DevGru commander, bull of a man with hands like catcher's mitts and eyes that had seen every kind of combat. Lieutenant Commander Vaughn, Master Chief Sullivan, your reputation precedes you. They walked toward the operations center. I read the San Diego report, Ramsey continued. Impressive rescue. Risky as hell, but impressive. He pulled up facility schematics on a tablet. 3 days ago, our automated security system started behaving erratically. Random lockdowns, pressure fluctuations, communications interference. Tech teams can't find the source. Kira studied the displays. The pattern was familiar, too familiar. When's your next major exercise scheduled? Tomorrow morning, 0600 hours, 14 operators, combined SEAL Delta urban assault training. Cancel it, Ramsey bristled. Excuse me? Cancel it, Colonel. This is the same pattern that preceded the San Diego incident. Someone's compromising your systems. If that exercise launches, people will die. I can't cancel a joint operation based on a hunch. It's not a hunch. It's pattern recognition from someone who's seen this before. Kira pulled up her tablet, showed him the data. San Diego. Camp Lejeune 6 months ago. Coronado 8 months before that. Same signature, same progression, same outcome. Ramsey studied the information. His expression shifted from defensive to concerned. What do you need? Access to your server room, your security logs, and 12 hours before that exercise launches. You've got 6. If you can't find something actionable by then, we proceed as planned. Kira was already moving. 6 is enough. She descended into the facility's server room with Sullivan and a young tech specialist named Corporal Davis, 24 years old, computer science degree from MIT. Nervous energy that radiated like heat. Ma'am, the logs are clean. We've run every diagnostic. There's no evidence of intrusion. That's because you're looking for the wrong thing, Kira said. You're looking for unauthorized access. I'm looking for authorized access that shouldn't exist. Her fingers flew across the keyboard. She wasn't searching for hackers breaking in. She was searching for someone who already had the keys. There, a credential set accessing the system at 0247 hours 3 days ago, making small modifications to pressure protocols, communication frequencies, emergency response timing. Kira pulled up the credential details. Her heart stopped. Vaughn M. Commander, DevGru. Her mother's credentials, active, being used here, now. Sullivan looked over her shoulder, saw it. His face went hard. Corporal, who has administrative access to retired personnel databases? Davis checked his system. Only 3 people at this facility, Colonel Ramsey, Major Harris, and the civilian tech contractor. Davis pulled up a personnel file. Dr. Elias Thornwell. Kira and Sullivan exchanged a look. 30 years. They'd been hunting him for 30 years. How long has he been here? Sullivan's voice was tight. Davis checked the file. 2 years. Came in as civilian contractor. Credentials checked out. Background clean. He had a different name back then. Dr. Marcus Webb. Changed it legally 15 years ago. Sullivan's jaw clenched. Ghost protocol. Classic Cold War tradecraft. Disappear. Resurface with new identity. Embed yourself where you can do the most damage. Kira understood. Thornwell hadn't been hiding. He'd been positioning himself, waiting for the right moment to continue what he'd started in Kuwait. Where is he now? Server maintenance room, sub-level 3. He's been down there since yesterday, running pre-exercise diagnostics. Kira stood, started walking, fast. Ma'am, where are you? Get Colonel Ramsey. Tell him to meet me at sub-level 3. Armed. Now. She took the stairs 3 at a time. Sullivan kept pace despite his age. 34 years of staying in fighting shape. Sub-level 3 was cold, quiet. The hum of servers filled the space with white noise. Dr. Elias Thornwell stood at the central console. 64 years old, gray hair, wire-rimmed glasses. He looked like someone's grandfather. He looked up as Kira entered. Lieutenant Commander Vaughn, I was wondering when you'd arrive. His voice was calm, expected. You're earlier than I calculated. Impressive. Kira's hand moved to her sidearm. Step away from the console, Dr. Thornwell. He smiled, didn't move. I don't think so. You see, we're on a timeline here. In approximately 4 hours, 14 operators will descend into this facility. And 3.7 hours after that, they'll experience a catastrophic system failure that will make San Diego look like a training accident. Why? Thornwell's smile widened. Why? Because your mother discovered what I was doing. 3 years ago in North Korea, she found evidence that I'd been selling our training protocols to foreign intelligence services. Actual combat data, vulnerabilities, weaknesses. He paused. She was going to expose me. So I modified the facility systems, created the exact scenario that killed her and 2 others. Kira's voice came out like winter steel. You murdered my mother. I eliminated a security threat. Your mother understood the distinction. She was a professional. He typed something on the console. And now her daughter will understand it too. Because I've just locked down this entire facility, the exercise will proceed. The systems will fail. And 14 more operators will die while you watch helplessly from inside this sealed room. The door behind Kira slammed shut. Electromagnetic locks engaged with a heavy sound that spoke of finality. Thornwell pulled a pistol from his jacket. Your mother made one mistake. She thought the mission was more important than survival. I don't make that mistake. Kira didn't move. Her eyes tracked every micro-expression on his face, reading him the way she'd been trained to read threats. You're making one mistake right now, Dr. Thornwell. What's that? Assuming I came alone. The ventilation grate above Thornwell's head exploded. Sullivan dropped through, weapon drawn. Federal custody, Dr. Thornwell. Don't move. Thornwell spun, fired. Sullivan dove left. Kira moved. 3 steps. Disarm. Thornwell's pistol clattered across the floor. She had him on the ground in 4 seconds. Knee on his spine, zip ties securing his wrists. You can't stop it, Thornwell gasped. The protocols are already in motion. The exercise will launch. The systems will fail. You lost. Kira hauled him to his feet, threw him towards Sullivan, then turned to the console. Corporal Davis, you monitoring? Davis's voice crackled through her comms. Yes, ma'am. We've got backup access from main operations. Good. I'm sending you the kill codes. Shut down Thornwell's modifications. Restore original safety protocols. Then lock him out of every system on this base. Copy that. I'll need 3 minutes. Kira watched the clock, watched the code scroll across the screen, watched as 3 years of her mother's ghost being used to kill American operators finally came to an end. 2 minutes later, Davis's voice came back. Ma'am, systems are clean. Exercise can proceed safely. Kira turned to Thornwell. Colonel Ramsey had arrived with security. They were hauling him toward the door. Thornwell looked back at her, bleeding from a cut above his eye, smiling despite being defeated. Your mother died because she thought duty mattered more than life. You'll die the same way someday. It's inevitable for people like you. Kira's voice was quiet, certain. Maybe. But we'll die knowing we stood for something. You'll die knowing you sold out the people who trusted you for money. She paused. I know which death I'd choose. The next morning, the exercise launched at 0600 hours. 14 operators descended into the facility, ran the urban assault training, completed every objective, surfaced 6 hours later without incident. Kira watched from the operations center. When the last operator cleared the water, she allowed herself to breathe. Colonel Ramsey approached. Dr. Thornwell is in custody. NCIS found evidence linking him to 6 other incidents. He's looking at multiple life sentences. Good. There's something else. Ramsey handed her a tablet. We found encrypted files on his personal server, communications with foreign intelligence services, selling our training protocols, operational procedures, vulnerability assessments. He paused. Your mother's investigation was further along than anyone knew. She documented everything. We just couldn't access it because Thornwell deleted the primary files and buried the backups. Kira looked at the screen, her mother's notes, her analysis, her conclusions. Insider threat, tech contractor, recommendation, immediate investigation. Margot Vaughn had known. She'd figured it out, and Thornwell had killed her to keep it quiet. She was right all along, Kira said softly. She was. And because of you, we finally proved it. Ramsey stood. Your mother would be proud, Lieutenant Commander. Kira didn't trust herself to speak, just nodded. 3 days later, Kira sat in Admiral Hayes's office via video conference, Sullivan beside her. Thornwell has confessed to everything, Hayes said. In exchange for avoiding the death penalty, he's providing details on every facility he compromised, every protocol he sold, every vulnerability he created. She paused. Because of your work, we're implementing a complete overhaul of our security protocols. New credential management, enhanced monitoring, independent oversight. Hayes looked directly at Kira. There's more. Commander Cross requested to speak with you. Kira nodded. Put him through. Cross's face appeared on the screen. He looked different, older, humbler, like a man who'd spent days examining his own failures. Lieutenant Commander Vaughn, I wanted to thank you for saving my life, for advocating for restorative measures instead of punitive ones. He paused. And to tell you what I'm doing about it. I'm redesigning the entire instructor training program, focusing on unconscious bias, professional respect, competence-based evaluation. I'm using my own failure as the primary case study. His voice was steady, certain. I'm teaching new instructors what happens when ego overrides judgment, when assumptions replace assessment, when you dismiss people based on appearance rather than capability. Kira felt something loosen in her chest. That's good work, Commander. It's necessary work. Work I should have been doing all along. Cross looked directly at the camera. I owe you a debt I can never fully repay, but I'm going to spend the rest of my career trying. Kira's voice was quiet. Just make the institution better, Commander. That's repayment enough. After the call ended, another face appeared on the screen. Young, female, nervous but determined. Petty Officer Sloan Mercer, 22 years old, the one who'd been watching from the observation deck when Kira surfaced. Ma'am, I wanted to tell you, I just got accepted to Advanced Signals Intelligence Training, top of my class. They're sending me to DevGru selection next year. Kira felt pride surge through her, the kind her mother must have felt watching her succeed. Outstanding, Petty Officer. I wouldn't have had the courage to apply if I hadn't watched you, hadn't seen what quiet competence looks like. Sloan's smile widened. I'm going to be like you, ma'am. So good they can't ignore me. So competent assumptions become irrelevant. You're already halfway there. Keep that fire. I will, I promise. After she disconnected, Kira sat alone in the operations center. But before she could stand, the door opened. Sullivan stepped in. No words, just walked over and sat in the chair beside her. For a long moment, neither spoke. Just two warriors who'd carried the same weight for 3 years, who'd finally set it down. I kept my promise, Sullivan said quietly, to Margot. I watched over you. I was your witness. Kira turned to look at him, this 58-year-old man who'd been more than a mentor, who'd been the bridge between her and her mother's legacy. You did more than that, Master Chief. You finished what she started. You caught the man who killed her. We caught him, Sullivan corrected. Your mother's daughter caught him. I just helped carry the gear. A small smile touched Kira's lips, the first real smile since the mess hall a week ago. She'd argue with you about that. She always did. Sullivan's eyes were distant, remembering. Stubborn, brilliant, never knew when to quit. Wonder where I get it from. Sullivan looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time since Margot died, He saw peace in those dark eyes. Not the absence of grief, but something else. Completion. "What will you do now?" he asked. Kira held up the photograph of her mother. Young, fierce, forever 26 in that frozen moment. "Keep going. There are more Thornwells out there, more operators who need saving, more lessons to teach." She paused. "What about you, Master Chief? 34 years. Kuwait to Syria. You've earned your rest." Sullivan was quiet. Then he stood, straightened to his full height, a warrior to the end. "Your mother once told me that operators don't retire. We just change missions." He looked down at Kira. "I think my next mission is making sure every instructor in this Navy understands what I learned in Kuwait. That competence doesn't announce itself. It just is." Kira stood, extended her hand. Sullivan took it, but then pulled her into a brief, fierce embrace. The kind that said everything words couldn't. "Your mother would be so damn proud of you," he whispered. Kira's voice was steady when she answered. "She'd be proud of both of us, Master Chief. We finished it together." They separated. Sullivan nodded once, sharp, professional, then walked to the door. He paused at the threshold, looked back. "Per aspera ad astra, Lieutenant Commander." Kira's hand found the jade bracelet. "Through hardship to the stars, Master Chief." Sullivan left, and Kira sat back down with her mother's photograph. The mission was complete. Thornwell was in custody. The facilities were secure. Her mother's investigation was vindicated. She pulled out the photograph Sullivan had given her. Margot Vaughn in her DevGru uniform. Young, fierce, competent. Exactly the way Kira remembered her. "We got him, Mom," she whispered. "Thornwell, the traitor, the one who killed you. He's going to prison for the rest of his life." She touched the photo. "And your investigation, your work, it changed everything. New protocols, new training. Sloan and hundreds like her will have better opportunities because of what you discovered." The jade bracelet was warm on her wrist, almost like her mother's pulse beating alongside her own. "Per aspera ad astra," Kira said quietly. "Through hardship to the stars. You taught me that. Not just the words, the meaning. That the mission is bigger than us. That serving something greater is worth any sacrifice." She stood, packed the photograph carefully. The next mission was already waiting. Another facility, another threat, another opportunity to complete the work her mother had started. Because that's what professionals did. They didn't quit when the mission got hard. They didn't stop when personal costs became steep. They completed the objective. Always. Kira Vaughn walked out of the operations center into the Syrian morning. 29 years old, DevGru operator, daughter of a hero, carrier of a legacy that would outlive them both. Behind her, the facility hummed with activity. Operators training, systems functioning, lives being saved by protocols her mother had died trying to protect. Ahead of her, the world waited, full of threats, full of challenges, full of people who would underestimate her based on appearance, age, gender, silence. She'd save them anyway. Because competence didn't require recognition, strength didn't need announcement, and the most powerful thing a professional could do was exactly what Kira Vaughn had done from the beginning. Be so good that assumptions became irrelevant. So competent that doubt became impossible. So committed to the mission that nothing, not ego, not fear, not even death, could stop the objective from being completed. Commander Cross would teach that lesson to every instructor who passed through his program. Petty Officer Sloan Mercer would embody it in every operation she ran. And somewhere in the silent ranks of operators who never made headlines and never sought recognition, Kira Vaughn's example would inspire a generation of warriors who understood that true strength lived in silence. True power resided in competence, and true service required nothing more than the absolute, unwavering commitment to completing the mission, no matter the cost. Her mother had taught her that, And now Kira would teach it to everyone who came after. The legacy lived on. The mission continued. And the woman they'd chosen to underestimate had proven, beyond any shadow of doubt, that she was exactly the right woman all along. Kira boarded the transport aircraft, destination classified, mission critical. The jade bracelet caught the morning light as she climbed the ramp. She touched it once, felt her mother's presence, felt the weight of 34 years of promises kept and missions completed. The cargo door closed, the engines roared to life, and Lieutenant Commander Kira Vaughn flew into the dawn, carrying her mother's legacy forward into whatever darkness waited next. On the tarmac below, Sullivan stood, watching the C-130 climb into the Syrian sky. His hand rose in a salute, not to the aircraft, to the woman inside, to her mother, to 34 years of promises kept. Colonel Ramsey stepped beside him. "That's one hell of an operator, Master Chief." Sullivan lowered his hand. "She's her mother's daughter, and that's the highest compliment I can give." The C-130 banked east, disappeared into the sunrise. Sullivan turned back toward the operations center. He had work to do, instructors to train, a generation to teach, a legacy to preserve. Margot Vaughn had started something in Kuwait 34 years ago. Her daughter had finished it in Syria. But the mission was never really over. It just changed forms, passed from one generation to the next, from mother to daughter, from mentor to student, from warrior to warrior. Silent guardians, all of them, standing watch in the darkness, completing the mission, always. Because that's what silent guardians do. They stand watch, they complete the mission, and they never, ever give up. Not on their country, not on their teammates, not on the belief that competence and courage can change the world, one quiet mission at a time.